Hi guys!
Hi guys.
Today we're going to be talking about our experiences as academic debaters. To give you a little background, I started out as a PF debater and I debated PF for about 2 months, and then I became an LD debater and I did a lot of LD debate. I debated LD basically throughout this entire past school year and I really love it.
Yeah, and I have stayed in PF this year. Just started the beginning of the last school year, and it's been going pretty well with me and my partner, PF Public Forum. That's the type of style in debate where you debate as teams.
Yes, and LD is the individual form of debate that's more philosophy focused, more value focused, and PF tends to lean more towards real life scenarios and facts, data.
Yeah. So with debate, Jess, what do you think of, or what did you think of debate before even getting into it, like last year or the years before that?
Well, tournament debate slash academic debate was actually really different than I expected it to be. I thought it was literally you went to a tournament and then while you were there, you were assigned a topic and then you got to choose if you were going to be supporting it or going against it. It's really nothing like I imagined, honestly.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be less serious topics in a way, more like the topics that we wrote about in previous grades in argumentative essays, like should kids go on social media or should kids be able to have pets. I thought we would be debating things like that as freshmen. So for those of you who have done LG debate, you know that my expectations were way off from the way that it actually is.
Hmm. And actually, with the going into tournaments and having your topic given to you that day, it does happen. I think I watched a video about Harvard debate, right? Like in the college, if you do debate there, it's much more rigorous in that you have to go in with already knowing about all of these current events and a lot about history. So you already need a lot of knowledge. And then you get it like 15 minutes, or sometimes it's not 15 minutes, like more like an hour before. And then you only have that hour to research the topic before debating. And that to me is kind of it's crazy because I spend so much time prepping because I'm just so nervous and I feel like I need to prep. But in Harvard, only an hour of prep about a
That's
topic you
insane.
might not be an expert in.
Yeah, for those of you guys who don't know, at least in high school debate, a lot of prep goes into preparing for tournaments. Going up to the state championship tournament that I was in, I think I prepped almost every day for at least 3 hours just because I wanted to be so on top of things. So I can't imagine prepping only for an hour before the tournament.
Right. Well, it's just with your experience in debating, you learn to use whatever knowledge you have and to research in an efficient manner so that you're able to argue. And then like you learn all of these ways to speak and to really get your point across where you don't really need to prep every word you're going to say. And yeah,
Yes.
high school, there's a lot more support from your team rather than, college getting the topic 1 hour before. So definitely we have that time. It's easier in that sense. And it's not as scary. Actually, Jess and I, we are probably debaters that prep more than like what might be expected. So we're giving you like our perspective, but honestly, I think debate can be also for people who might not want to spend as much time on debate. You might not get as much out of it, but it still is like an incredible activity.
Definitely. And for those of you who don't know a lot about debate, in both public forum and Lincoln Douglas debate, there really is only one speech that is pre-written
Yes.
in the entire time period. So if you want to, you could literally just write that speech and then go through the rest of it without having done any prep and just go for it. I do not recommend that, but I think that's what debate's about. Sometimes your opponent has a really good argument and you don't have a response, even
Yeah.
if you prepped extensively and you have to think on your feet.
Yeah, it's just you do as much as you can in your prep. You research whatever there is on the internet, whatever you can, and but you can't comprehensively do everything. It's not possible. But all you have to do is like in each round, I love that you get a blank slate and then you put whatever you have, you give your all in that one round. And
Yes.
you just have to argue, argue your side.
And I love just seeing so many different styles when competing. I've gone against so many different kinds of opponents, and I think it's just valuable. Each tournament for me was a learning experience this past year, and I feel like as the tournaments progressed, I got better and better. And I saw that my speaker scores went up, I started winning more, and it definitely became more enjoyable for me once I just really understood how tournaments work and got my stuff down. And for those of you guys who don't know, debate has three levels: novice, JV, and varsity. And in that order, novice is basically for beginners, and varsity is for at the most advanced level there is. And JV is in the middle. So Keira and I last year were novices because it was our first year of debate, and next year we're going to be in JV. So Keira, how do you feel about moving up to JV?
Well, JV, these are going to be sophomores and juniors in high school, so they won't all be in our grade. And since we're entering 10th grade, there very well might be a junior team that we're versing in our first tournament for our first round. So that is a little nerve-wracking, but I think debate, I'm always in it for the experience. It's always going to be learning with every step, every tournament. So I'm excited for next year.
Learning that really helps you learn about the real world, because in the real world sometimes it isn't fair like that. And yeah, I think that's another thing. The research aspect, it's just there's so many different reasons that debate is useful. And thinking on your feet, right? Sometimes your opponents will come in with a really unique contention that you never would have thought of. You have nothing prepared against it, but you still have to try to take down that argument, maybe find a logical flaw in their thinking, maybe realize that they're not using credible sources, something.
Yeah. And also it just gives you more confidence, right? Like you now can say, Jess, I'm a debater. You can say that.
Yes.
And always my perception of a debater, it's like almost intimidating, but you shouldn't be intimidated. But like I always have this perception of they have their stuff together and they have a lot of knowledge. They're able to speak eloquently, all of that. And you can say I'm a debater. And that's just cool to me.
Definitely. And another thing, debate is like a family. Your teammates are really there for you. And even though you're in LD, you're competing individually, and in PF, you're only competing in groups of two, it really feels like a team, because a lot of teams, including our team, shares a lot of resources. We help each other out. We have club meetings, and we always wish each other happy birthdays, stuff like that.
Hmm. Yeah, and what you were saying about the debating on both sides, that is actually a very good point. In debate, you might go in with your fully formed opinions. You might already have opinions, but then you broaden your entire view and vision on these events and different things with more research and just thinking about things, because you are forced to debate on both sides. And that is actually something I learned in debate this year, with that, sometimes I would think someone says something very nicely in a very convincing way, and I think that must be right. How can you possibly refute that? But there's always something that can go against it. It doesn't mean one is right, one is wrong. It's about how you argue it, and you can argue it always in a different way. That's something interesting.
Absolutely. And also another huge skill is the analytical skills and listening skills, because for those of you who haven't debated yourselves, in around us debaters, we flow our opponent's case. So while your opponent's reading their case, you have to write down the main points so that you remember them and you can refute them. And also what I like to do, to major debate language, but I like to pre-flow my side of the case, my case, because I like to mark down if my opponent drops any of my points, or if my opponent forgets to refute one of my points, maybe just chooses not to. So then, because in debate, actually, if your opponent doesn't refute one of your points, it's an automatic win on that point, at least in Lincoln Douglas. So honestly, it's a lot to keep track of, but going back to what we were talking about the experience, skill in flowing and keeping track of your case and your opponent's case really comes from actually competing in tournaments and putting yourself out there. It doesn't come from watching YouTube videos about flowing and just thinking about it.
Yes, although I have spent a lot of time on watching YouTube videos, on debate and all of that. But yeah,
Yes.
listening, a very important skill that you actually have the opportunity to develop when doing debate. And in rounds, right, debaters actually can speak very quickly. Like you're speaking, especially the first speech where you have the entire case written, that person is just going rapid fire and you have to list it down. And this was actually something I've been thinking about with what should debate be in the rounds, how should it look like? Should these debaters really be speaking really quickly? And I found myself almost like feeling this anger because I was like, debate is turning into this competitive activity that people are just spewing out information. And I was thinking, debate is an activity where you're supposed to be learning how to present something convincingly and how to really speak in that you're like enunciating very clearly, you have these tones and you're captivating the audience. So I was thinking, if you have just these words that you're spewing out at such quick rates, you're not doing that in debate. So
Yes.
then I was really thinking though, because like I was doing some research on like debate, should it be quick? And some people hate it, but it really is a good skill. Like debate is not the real world. You are debating about real world topics, but it is not the real world when you're debating in a round. And it's just an activity to help in the real world. So when you're able to speak very quickly, but able to be understood, like you're enunciating very quickly, then when you speak at a normal speaking pace, then you are very amazing, right? You're an amazing speaker if you can speak quickly, comfortably, then obviously going back to like normal people land realm, you can speak very well. And if you can listen to a very quick speaker and have to think on the spot, then you can listen to anything. So now I'm on the side of like, yeah, okay, debate is good with its quick speaking.
Yeah, and for me, debate actually taught me how to speak slower, contrary to what Keira was saying. My entire life, I've spoken kind of quickly, but in my RFDs, I often saw judges had the comment for me that, or reasons for decision, sorry, that's what RFD is for those of you guys who don't know, that I was speaking too quickly. And I was really able to take that piece of feedback and learn to speak a little slower and more understandably for larger audiences. And I think that helped me a lot just in general, just in day-to-day conversations, it helped me become more understood and much more. So yeah, I think it just helps us speaking clearly overall. No, I feel like it is a little competitive, obviously, because the whole point of you going there is to compete against other people
Yep.
and try to win. But I think most of the people there aren't extreme. Well, they are competitive in that they are good debaters and there'll be a good competition between you. But it's not competitive in that there's not an extreme amount of pressure put on you to win. And a lot of people, including myself, just go to certain tournaments only to get better and to get more experience. For example, this year I went to the Lakeland tournament, and I know that's a big tournament. And I was pretty new to debate at that time, so I wasn't going to that tournament thinking about winning. I was just going to that tournament thinking about becoming a better debater and learning from my rounds because I knew there would be a lot of great debaters there. And I feel like the debate community is very open and welcoming to anyone who comes out and competes.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly it is. And I think it's getting better with like trying to include everyone and encouraging people who might think that they're not cut out for debate. But seriously, like it is for everyone, everyone learns in it. You're not built perfectly at the beginning, but it's always like a learning process. So debate for me, the competition has definitely stressed me out before. Like, I mean, just leading up to my first tournament, like I was saying, I was very nervous just because it's an activity where you come out and there's a winner and a loser, right? There has to be in a round. And there's good in that, obviously, because you get feedback and you know what you can do to win in those rounds. But it still is something, even though there might not be any tangible prize that you get from winning any one round, it's still something that you always strive for. And it always has put pressure on me. But I'm very lucky in that my partner actually is like a more easygoing, low-key person. Like she will work hard, but she will never get upset in a losing round. So that is like, I can be as competitive as I want. I can be as ambitious as I want in trying to win rounds and research and prep for those rounds. But there's no pressure from her, at least. There's no pressure on me from my partner to win. So that's a good thing. And it's always good to kind of calm yourself down and bring it back, realize that debate, once again, it's all about developing the skills of argumentation, writing, research, everything we've mentioned, rather than winning round after round.
Yeah, and just getting better. I mean, I looked back on some of my old cases and I was just like, wow, did I write this? Did I actually go to a tournament and read this case? And then I look at my newer cases and I'm like, wow, this is so much better. I've grown so much. And the only way to really grow and get better is to go to tournaments and to compete. And even if that means losing a lot, getting better is such an accomplishment. And I think getting better and improving is much better than constantly winning, but not improving at all and staying the same. Because even if right now you're not doing as well as you want to be, if you keep going to tournaments and keep putting yourself out there and shining, I promise you that one day you will win a tournament or you will reach your goal, because practice makes progress. You don't make any progress by just sitting back and praying that you'll get better. You make progress by going to tournaments, putting yourself out there, and being scared, being nervous.
Yeah, it's very cliche, but putting yourself outside of your comfort zone is what pushes you to be better in all aspects. Like debating a bunch of 10-year-olds probably feels good, right? You know how to really win an argument against them. But that's not what is going to push you and force you to learn and grow. It's like debating better debaters.
And
And yeah, even if you don't win, you end up over time, you see the progress. Like I look back and I think of all the topics that we've debated about, right? Like at least for public forum, it was universal healthcare, nuclear weapons, like nuclear no first use policy, the NSA, urbanization, the IMF. You learn about all these current events. And actually, just so you mentioned this, right? It's like you didn't expect these real world topics. And that's what I love about public forum or just debate in general. You really do get to learn about these topics. And they might be almost arbitrarily obscure, you might think, in that there's a specific resolution that you're debating about, the statement. But in your research and in forming arguments, you have to learn about the different things in that, like the NSA, right? The National Security Agency. You don't just learn about whatever specific thing you're debating about. You have to learn about the government, how it's structured, and you learn about, like, I have an understanding, as it's not very comprehensive yet, but a small understanding of civil liberties and what we expect really from the US Constitution, things like that. So just overall, I think it makes you a more well-rounded person, just going to tournaments and researching for the tournaments in debate.
And I think one of the most important things about debate is that you debate both sides. In PF, you
True.
debate
Yeah.
both pro and con, and in LD, you debate both af and neg. And that really helps a lot on so many different levels, because I'm a very opinionated person and I usually only think about my opinion. But when I debate both sides, I really have to get involved about both perspectives and both opinions regarding the resolution. And like Keira said, it's just so interesting delving into these topics. If you want to learn a little bit more about debate, I'm just going to throw the LD topics out there in case you're thinking about choosing between LD and PF. And then I think, Keira, if you want, after this, we can maybe go through some more of the differences in case
Yeah,
anyone's
sure.
interested in that. So for LD, our topics were compulsory voting, federal jobs guarantee, lethal autonomous weapons, and universal childcare. And then the nationals topic is about civil liberties and public health emergencies. So our topics this year were surprisingly a little PF-ish, but definitely we're more philosophy based. So I
Mhm.
guess for those of you guys who don't know anything about debate, really quick, I just wanted to go over the LD format of debate. And I guess that will also help you learn a little bit more about what academic debate is. So we start off with an affirmative constructive, the person who is supporting the resolution. And this is a pre-minute case that's 6 minutes long. And you cannot go over this time limit. It's strict 6 minutes. Then there's a 3-minute cross-examination and the negation. So the person going against the resolution asks the affirmative questions. Then there's a 7-minute negative constructive, and this is half pre-written because the negative reads their constructive and then they refute the affirmative case. And this refutation is not pre-written because obviously you don't know what the affirmative is going to say in their case. So you can't really pre-write that part. But what a lot of people do is they have block files or blocks that have a lot of rebuttals to common contentions or arguments. And then there's a 3-minute cross-examination when the affirmative asks the negative questions. And there's a 4-minute affirmative rebuttal after that, where the affirmative rebuts the negative case and then reaffirms their ideas and concepts. And this is not pre-written. This is just going on the spot because they can't predict what the negative will say. And also in this speech, they refute the negative refutations to their case. So this is a difficult speech because in only 4 minutes, you need to do those 3 things completely on the spot. And this is not pre-written once again, so it's very difficult. Then there's a 6-minute negative rebuttal, and the negative addresses the arguments of the previous speech and summarizes the round for the judge. And new evidence and arguments are typically frowned upon in this round because the affirmative only has 3 minutes to refute whatever they say. And then after that, there's a 3-minute second affirmative rebuttal, and the affirmative addresses the arguments of the previous speech and summarizes the round for the judge. And no new arguments or evidence are allowed because obviously the negation cannot respond to whatever the affirmative says. And in novice debate, I believe we had 5 minutes of prep time, sometimes 4. It depended on the tournament. And prep time is time that you can just take between speeches to prep to maybe if it's a part that's not pre-written to maybe write a little bit of it out, to look through your block file, just to think, to look at your flow, you know.
Yeah. I didn't know you have 5 minutes of prep time, but I guess your speeches are actually longer in LD.
Yes. Also, there's only one person competing, so
Yeah.
I guess that's part of it. But I think normally it was 4 minutes, but we were given an extra minute this year because tournaments were virtual. So just for technical difficulties. Yeah, I'm also excited about next year, but I'm also a little apprehensive because, like Keira said, it's 10th and 11th graders together. So likely I'm going to be put up against some 11th graders, but I think it's those difficult debates that really make you a better debater.
Hmm. Definitely. Like when you have to really think, right? And oftentimes,
Yeah.
I don't think I was really challenged before debate. There was nothing really challenging my brain. And then all of a sudden I'm put into rounds where really I have no idea what to expect from the other team. They give an argument and I might not have heard of it, or I might not have prepped very extensively for it. So it really challenged my brain to think of arguments on spot and refutations. So that's good in debate. But actually, to bring it back, why did you choose to go into debate?
I chose to go into debate, sorry, I can't speak. Honestly, because I love writing and I knew that there would be a lot of writing involved in debate. And I also have always been a pretty argumentative person. So I thought debate would be a good outlet for me to turn on my argumentative side And I honestly love debate so much. I think it's a good fit for my interests because I also like research, and there's a lot of research that goes into debate. What about you?
Well, for me, going into ninth grade, we had to choose pretty much one elective, right? So it was either public speaking or debate. I was deciding between those two because I really think that public speaking, being able to speak to people you don't know or to different audiences, it's very important in life, especially going into adulthood, just in general, very important. So I was thinking public speaking or debate, but debate is kind of like it is public speaking and much more. It's public speaking and argumentation and researching, like you were saying, writing. So I just chose to do that. Ended up loving the class, loving our teacher too. And, there was a club. I didn't really think about the club before entering ninth grade, but with the class, I loved the class and then might as well join the club.
Hmm.
Like I didn't go into ninth grade thinking I was going to be a debater and go to tournaments. Like I did not think that, but it ended up working out well. I enjoyed it. So just
Yeah,
kept going.
speaking of just debate and all the skills you learn, I think debate is one of the most useful extracurricular activities one could join because I think, like Kira was saying, some of the most important skills you learn is how to speak clearly, how to present a clear argument. And also, I think another important skill you learn is that as you debate, you'll see that there are many different types of judges, some of which have already developed their own opinions, some of which who aren't listening. I mean, I know
Plenty of them.
that some of my friends have told me that they saw a judge playing Mario Kart 8 during their debate. There was a judge once who wasn't muted, and I heard him talking on the phone with his wife during a round. So I think,
Well, and also going into debate, I was very nervous. Like, what about you? Did you have the nerves? Like, I had all the butterflies, all of that.
I was extremely, extremely intimidated
Yeah.
going into debate because I don't know, man. I just thought that I wasn't cut out for it in the beginning. I thought the other teams would. I think I had really, really high expectations of the other teams. I thought they were dedicating 6 hours a day to debate and they knew the topic in and out. They knew every possible fact relevant to the topic. They would speak extremely clearly or they would speak too fast. I couldn't understand them. I just had these unrealistic apprehensions. But after my first tournament, I became a lot more confident because I realized that there really is no debater who knows every single thing about the
Yeah.
topic, who knows every single argument.
Yeah. I was also very nervous before the first tournament back in September. I was like shaking. I couldn't even go to bed sometimes, like the week leading up to it. And I would bombard the people I knew that had done debate before with tons of questions. Like looking back, very stupid questions like, have you ever not known what to say? And it's like now that we've debated in different tournaments, right? Like, yeah, I mean, there's been times I don't necessarily know exactly how I'm going to go about the speech or whatever, but I just speak and it isn't that hard. You just get used to it. And, I was saying with like, oh, I'm a debater, right? And a debater is always someone who always knows what to say, how to say the right thing. But honestly, like you can say you're a debater with pride just because you went to a tournament and you were challenged by like all of these different teams coming in with different arguments, with all the prep. You don't even have to be the best debater to be able to be proud of your accomplishments, of honestly just like going to a tournament, because not everyone does that. Not everyone has the guts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think going to a tournament in and of itself is a huge accomplishment, and you don't necessarily have to think of as an accomplishment as getting first, second, or third place at a tournament. I think just showing up and trying your hardest, that makes you a true champion and a true winner. Because on Saturday at 8 a.m., while you were up prepping and getting ready to debate, and all Saturday, when you were in rounds, think about your peers who were just sleeping, hanging out, watching TV. I mean, that takes guts. And like Kira and I said, it's extremely scary going into a tournament. Even my last tournament this year, I was absolutely mortified to go into it, even though I think leading up to that, I did actually about 7, 8 tournaments. I don't know, I can't really count, but by that point, I had done a lot of tournaments, but it's still nerve-wracking.
Yeah. But around, it's not supposed to be perfect, right? No one's recording you. I mean, even if people are watching, it doesn't matter because the whole point of debate, right? It's to learn and learn how to speak. You don't go into your first tournament or your first novice year of debate perfect in that you have every single, like all the research done, and you know exactly how to say things, what to say. It's not supposed to be perfect. Like around each round, even though you might try to win, right? It's all for learning. And that's something interesting because do you ever feel that debate is like, I mean, obviously you're competing in tournaments, but do you feel it's ever too competitive? Little leeway.
Yeah, a little
Uh,
leeway. So sorry if I just made things confusing and became a total debate nerd, but I think I just wanted to give you guys a little bit about the debate structure because if you never debated before, you might have been a little confused. So
yeah. I mean, so PF, I think it's actually a little simpler in the structure versus LD. PF, you go pro and con. It depends on the tournament. Sometimes pro will go first, or it's based on a coin flip, if it's pro or con going first. And then the people from different teams, they will take turns, the two teams, they will take turns in their speeches. And there's a designated first speaker and second speaker. The first speaker will give the pre-written case, but also the summary. The second speaker will give the first rebuttal to the other opponent's arguments, and they will give the final focus, which is just the last speech, trying to get everything out there, whatever else you have to say. And then just between all of those, you will have the cross-X, which is instead of LD, where I believe it's one person asking a question, almost like I feel like it's like an interrogation, just one person asking.
mhm. Yeah, there's one person answering and one person asking all of the time. So
Yeah.
totally interrogation style.
So for PF, you actually take turns, both teams. They get one question, you answer it, then you get the question, they answer it. It's like that. And you actually have all these strategies that you have to learn. You can't be complacent and allow them to dominate. Like there's strategies, especially in PF, where you can be interrupted in your cross-X time. So you have to be assertive, but not overly rude, right? You have to get your statement out and whatever you're trying to say, but formulate it as a question. It teaches you how to respond to people like that, right? Jess, a wonderful person, but there's been opponents, right, that try to set you up in that same way. And they're saying, oh, you're against human lives, you want to kill people. And you're like, no. And then they piece together this argument, but debate teaches you how to recognize the flaws in it. Like you learn all of the logical fallacies. I might not know like all of the names of the logical fallacies, but I can usually point out or smell something fishy, and then argue,
Right.
no, that's not what this means. And then you can then explain yourself further rather than what I was saying, like before debate, I might just be like, oh, that sounds convincing. I know it's not right, but I don't know how to respond. But debate teaches you and equips you with like the knowledge and confidence to be able to respond
Yes.
in a
So
logical way.
do you have any tips for anyone who might want to start debate but feels a little apprehensive and doesn't know what they're getting into?
I would say to seek advice from the people that have done debate and have been to tournaments. So you're like friends with the experts, and then you have this confidence going in. You're not too nervous, so allow yourself to not be too nervous, right? Ask for help, just be curious in like everything in how debate works and how the topics, just be curious and always have that curiosity bubbling inside you, because then you can really improve and you will actually put in the effort, put in the time because you want to do it. And I think debate should always be an enjoyable activity. Like, don't put so much pressure where it is only about winning and losing, and you're putting in these hours that you don't enjoy, because then it really is stressful. It is too time consuming. Debate, it gives you a lot of skills, all of that, but enjoy it. Like, otherwise, I don't think I would enjoy debate because I've spent too much time on it, like so much time. But overall, like I've seriously enjoyed it, and I think to have fun is the best advice in debate.
Definitely. And I also wanted to add that it's never too late to start debate. A lot of people are scared to start debate if they're an upperclassman, but just go for it. I don't think anyone judges you whatsoever, and it's such a rewarding thing to do. And like Keira said, just have fun with it. It's not necessarily about winning tournaments, it's about those smaller victories, like improving little by little, getting better, watching your progress. And nowadays, I don't want to sound like a grandma, but there's so many online resources, YouTube, websites that can totally walk you through the entire process. And I highly recommend using all of them and just talking to upperclassmen debaters on your team, asking them for advice. Because from my experience, they're always pretty willing to give advice and to help out younger debaters.
Yeah, and yeah, keep having fun with debate because you end up learning more than what we cite of like argumentation, right? I mean, those are absolutely wonderful skills, like public speaking and all of that. But I've learned things about how to be a good partner, working with someone for hours, like it's just crazy. In a very competitive environment, you have to work well with your partner and you have to deal with the wins, the losses, all of that. And you just learn a lot in going through debate, which is a competitive activity, but it's an activity you should have fun with. So yeah.
Definitely. And our inbox, through the riff podcast at gmail.com, always open if you guys have any questions about anything we just said, about debate, getting started. Send us your cases. I would love to help out in any way possible.
Yes.
All right, guys, I think that's all for today. Keira, do you have any final words?
Final words, love debate. And actually, I still have much more to improve on. I'm not perfect. I consider myself a novice. We have not entered JV yet. And I've learned a lot so far in my 1 year, so I'm excited to see what I can do later on.
Yeah, you never stop learning and you never stop improving. I highly recommend debate if you're on the fence about it. I'd recommend you just go for it, go to a tournament, try it, and if you don't like it, you can always stop doing it. So thanks for listening, guys. And if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram at Through the Rift Podcast. Bye, guys.
Always listen to us on Spotify.
Yep.
You have to answer questions in a way that will either help your side or not completely destroy everything that you've built so far in the speeches.
Right. And I also love setting up my opponent.